Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. We're speaking on the day when a new French government has been named, the first under centrist Emmanuel Macron. He was the winner of a presidential election where the two big blocs that have dominated French politics for decades were eliminated in the first round. The center-left Socialist, the center-right Les Républicains party. With us to talk about it, he's a businessman who campaigned for François Fillon. Arnaud Vessier chairs the French Chamber of Commerce overseas. Welcome back as well to Paris City Councillor Charles Begbede, who also campaigned for François Fillon. And who takes a dimmer view to this new president and this new cabinet. Green Party member Marie Toussaint, the founder of the NGO Notre Affaire à tous, our business, I suppose is the way to translate that. How would you translate?
Our business, yeah.
Our business, yeah. And from Prague, Martin Michele of Europeum, the Institute for European Foreign Policy. Welcome back, Martin. Emmanuel Macron had already thrown the cats in amongst the pigeons when he named a close ally of former Les Républicains Prime Minister Alain Juppé as his PM on Monday. Edouard Philippe at a congenial handover ceremony with socialist predecessor Bernard Cazeneuve.
I'm a man of the right, which won't surprise you, I'm sure. We have esteem for one another.
All right, Edouard Philippe saying, I'm a man of the right. What was your reaction, Martin Michele, when you heard the Prime Minister say that? I thought this was supposed to be, a new way of thinking where we'd gotten rid of those old left versus right ideas.
Well, look, I don't think the left versus right is going to die anytime soon in France. I mean, we shouldn't be so sure about that. I think that what you'll see in the National Assembly is that you will have lots of people, including the civil society candidates of the République En Marche, who may still structure themselves along the left-right axis. So I don't think that, when Edouard Philippe says that I am a man of the right and that will not surprise you, that this should be perceived as a problem. At the contrary, in my mind, it should be perceived is the fact that, he is very clear about his role in also potentially attracting more, Républicains in the République En Marche. So I think, it's very clear political positioning, political posturing that actually, we say we put everything on the table and we're clear about where we come from and we're going to do this together, in a way where we learned from 2002 when we had Chirac versus Le Pen. We learned that having a government that was quite structured towards the right was not the right decision to make. And here I think Macron, in adding the sensitivities, the left, the right, the center-right, he's actually, ensuring that we don't go down this road and that we're actually not favoring the rise of the extremes, as the previous panelists pointed out.
All right, that's an important bit of history just to remind our international viewers. By the way, if you're just discovering the French Prime Minister, he is 1.94 meters. He's a very tall man. Frédéric Begbede, back in 2002, big upset. The far right finds itself in the second round of the presidential election. So the left calls to vote for the incumbent, Jacques Chirac. Mm-hmm. And Jacques Chirac, many have begrudged the fact that he didn't form a kind of a national unity government. Is Macron doing the right thing in this case? Because he did have the far right in front of him in the second round saying, hey, my mandate, I don't have the mandate of one party, I need a big tent.
Yeah, it's right, in a way. But first, when Chirac was in finalist against Jean-Marie Le Pen, it was a very big surprise to all the politics at that time. And secondly, Macron made an objective in his own campaign this last weeks to be either right, either left, or both. And so it was not a surprise that he, well, it was a surprise, but it was a little bit announced, let's say, that he proposed a name coming from the Republicans that defines himself as a man of right. But that we could discuss, by the way, because I believe that the definition of right and left is going to be a little bit more clear, has to be clarified, and because at the end, Again, he's in favor of free markets, clear, and with some colleagues now in the government, that's good. But is he really a man of right when he is very naive about multiculturalism, naive about our sovereignty within the European Union, naive vis-à-vis also the certain tensions, identity tensions that we are seeing in France for years now, and against which we are not doing too much, and the Republicans they had this multi-speech, and that was not clear at all. Again, I think that now it's sort of an opportunity to clarify.
There's going to be a big difference inside the cabinet. Lots of reactions on the hashtag F24 debate. One of them agreeing with something Marie Toussaint said in part one of our conversation. If French ministry's significance mirrors that of the UK, this is with few exceptions, parenthesis defense, another example of women getting second-ranked departments. PM, Interior, Economy, Foreign Affairs, all men. That's the reaction of Jill on Twitter there. The question of the possible friction to come, another one is the environment, because you have a new prime minister who used to be a spokesperson for the nuclear giant Areva, and Nicolas Hulot, who wants to see France unwind its 75% dependence on atomic energy. What's going to give on that score? Can they work together?
Well, about the Prime Minister, that's not all. It's also, well, there is the nuclear issue, but it's really a French issue, right? Like, as you said, and it's a bit different in other countries. But you have also the coal issue that is really opposing ecologists and those who promote the coal issue. And he's one of the biggest promoters in France of the coal industry. So this is going to be really hard for Nicolas Hulot to work with them. I hope, and I know his integrity, that he bargained a few ecological decisions to go forward. So I hope they will abandon the airport of Notre-Dame-des-Landes. I hope they will really quit coal, and Emmanuel Macron has said it once in his campaign, so I hope it's going to be the case. And I hope also that they will keep on going further with climate change, and we have to go high with our ambitions in fighting against climate change, especially in the agricultural issue. So this is also going to be something in the hand of another minister. So we're going to see how this all goes.
Arnaud Vessier, irreconcilable differences on day one, especially when it comes to the environment?
Yeah, I think on the environment, it's going to be very complicated. But I believe that the critical change which has just happened is the generational change. It's the fact that we got rid of the leaders in their 60s, and we have a completely new generation, which is less than 40 for our president, in their 40s for the prime minister, and most of the key ministers are actually rather young. So I believe that this new generation is going to be prepared to compromise for reforms. Our country has not known... You're
saying the old left versus right divide is not as strong among younger people?
I think that the need and the wish to see France adapt to the new world is going to be stronger with this new generation or younger generation, which knows the world, which has traveled, which for the most part speaks English, whereas all our old leaders did not speak English and had a very, very little understanding of global issues. So I think that, yes, there are things to be reconciled, but the fact that they are citizens of the world will help.
Yeah. I'm sorry I have to answer to that, because you say it's a renewal, but when you look at the three most important ministers, they're 65 of age as a middle, you know?
Their average is 65.
Who are the three most important ministers?
The three ministers of state. So Nicolas Hulot is 62, François Bayrou, and then Gérard Collomb. They're quite old. They're not young. These are a renewal.
Sure, but it is the protocol. It is not actually the responsibilities. The three key ministries are not those ones. I believe that defense, foreign affairs, the economy are as important as the other three. So It's and the prime minister is young, and it's going to be at prime minister level that many decisions.
This is of course the big conversation: is this just a change of generation, or is it a change in the way of doing politics? The mention there by Arnaud Vessier that we have a 39-year-old president in France. That's unprecedented. We have a 46-year-old prime minister, Édouard Philippe, mayor of the Normandy port city of Le Havre, a one-time communist stronghold until his predecessor took over in 1995. The win there by Emmanuel Macron, opening the door for Édouard Philippe to suddenly shoot on to the national stage.
I
think he's great, he's dynamic, and we need to make room for more young people. 46, he's at his prime. He's succeeding Antoine Ruffanchard, who was a good mayor who really changed the style of the city compared to previous mayors or socialists or communists.
Les anciens maires qui étaient là, ou socialistes ou communistes.
He has the capacity to be a good prime minister. He's like Macron in his way of doing things. An opportunist. He usually leans to the right, but when it's convenient, he'll go left.
Yeah, Martin Michele, what say you to that communist municipal councillor who sees Édouard Philippe, well, as just another politician?
Well, I think he's trying to prove that he wants to be more than just a politician. I mean, he also wants to be, you know, the main actor of the way politics is changing in France. And I think that it's actually very courageous of him to be the one impulsing the movement of the Républicains away from the line that the primaries had defined. And I think, you know, it really translates something that's deeper in the Conservative Party, which previous discussants have mentioned, which is the deep divide between the more conservative, more identity-based part of the party and the more progressive, more liberal part of the party. So I would actually want to highlight Édouard Philippe's courage, and that it's really with politicians such as him who are able to cross party lines that politics can actually change for once, and being a de facto representative of the young generation, the one that's traveled, the one that may have lived abroad. I can only salute this.
Let me ask you, Martin, what's been the reactions where you are in Prague, a city where you have a mix of people who are very pro-European and Eurosceptics who are very prominent?
Well, that's a fantastic question. As a matter of fact, I mean, the biggest reaction was actually, the expectation that Marine Le Pen would be doing so much better due to this somewhat prevalent anti-European, or I want to say Eurosceptic feeling. But now, I mean, the reaction overwhelmingly is, what's going to come out of this French-German renewed engine? I mean, one will have oiled up that engine. Well, France and Germany, from Prague, from Warsaw, from Budapest, they look like they're going to be unstoppable. And if they are able to create something that Macron has talked about, a two-speed Europe, where you have a core of countries who are working on the integration on certain issues, such as the Eurozone, such as defense policies, well, countries such as the Czech Republic may be left aside. So this is really also participating in the catching up of certain countries in Central Europe, and this is really a fundamental transformation that just even the election of Emmanuel Macron has brought forward already.
What's your reaction to that, Arnaud Vessier?
I think I would agree that for the first time we have a pro-European president. His platform has been on Europe, and it looks like he has the stamina and maybe the opportunity of really creating a teamwork with Germany and with Chancellor Merkel. If we can change the treaties, because Europe is suffering from the Nice treaties of the early 2000s, if we can change the treaties, I think we can bring Europe to where
he says the euro's power has to be boosted, or else the common currency won't survive. But can the euro be really reformed?
I think for the euro to be reformed, you need unity of economic policy. This is what it means at the end of the day. If France and Germany are to have the same currency as we do, we cannot have drastically different economic policies. So the reality behind the semantic is all about France aligning slowly but surely on German economic policy, and Germany giving up a bit in starting to maybe redistribute part of its surpluses, which are increasing and becoming a bit of an issue in Europe. But in the end, we need convergence between France and Germany if we want the euro to survive.
Is it going to happen, Frédéric Beigbeder?
Well, Germany to give its surpluses, certainly not. How? However, harmonizing, getting France more in line with the average in terms of taxation, in terms of labor market, yes, but it's our responsibility, and I think that's the main task of Emmanuel Macron and Edouard Philippe to implement reforms on that subject. But it's to France to reform itself in order to facilitate this homogeneity. But let's not idolize too much what Germany can do for us and what Europe can do for us. It's really our job.
You're saying it's to France to reform itself, and there's resistance already to any kind of reform. For instance, Emmanuel Macron talking about loosening labor law on the left. We're not hearing that much so far from the outgoing majority Socialist Party. Instead, it's the far left, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who on Tuesday seen here showing support on the picket line of an auto parts factory in the center of France that faces closure. Mélenchon, who won nearly 20% of the vote in the first round of the presidential election. Marie Toussaint, is he the voice of the opposition from now on, for the time being right now? And is he going to be resisting everything that we're talking about here when it comes to changing labor law, to curbing spending, big spending?
The thing is, what we saw in the last months is that the political space was divided in three blocks. You had the nationalists, sovereignists, the Front National. You had the business as usual team, in which I put the Republicans and Emmanuel Macron. And you had the people that promoted change around ecological horizon and promises, okay? To talk a bit about Europe as well. The important
You're leaving out the far left there.
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm
okay.
coming there. The important thing is that if we want Europe to survive, we have to invest and create jobs. And this will only be done through ecological transition. In France, ecological transition can bring 1 million jobs in 5 years. I defy anyone, whether it would be François Fillon or Emmanuel Macron or Jean-Luc Mélenchon, to create these jobs within 5 years. So if we want to move forward, we have to promote both democracy, Europe, and ecology, and solidarity. And you cannot do everything if you just stay on one foot, which is the social issue. So that's the first thing I want to say. The other thing is that when you arrive first of the left people and this transformation camp that I was talking about, your responsibility is to make this camp win. So we deeply regret that Jean-Luc Mélenchon did not take the hand of the people that were giving it to him to say, okay, let's go all together and fight for winning a majority. And this is our collective responsibility, but maybe if we wanted to be at the high of, if we wanted to be responsible and really be this opposition, he had to do this gesture, which he didn't do.
All right, instead he played solo.
May I just answer to Marie Toussaint briefly, because she's saying that Europe can create jobs with climate change. Maybe those jobs might derive from this green industry, but it's not Europe that creates jobs. It's firms. It's small and medium-sized companies, and they need a better environment. Tax, labor market, and economic environment, and that's why we need these reforms.
Martin Michelot, the 45% of French citizens in the first round who voted for protectionism, who voted perhaps for less Europe, who is their standard bearer in your eyes right now? Who is the most emblematic figure in France who will oppose Emmanuel Macron?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't want to conflate 45% of people who voted for either the extreme left or the extreme right with necessarily more protectionism or less Europe. I think, you know, the real factor that defined this election is that François Fillon and Marine Le Pen turned the election into a referendum for or against their person, you know, a referendum about whether they were guilty or not in the eyes of the population. So I wouldn't read too much into that number of 45%. And to answer your question directly, I think that right now Jean-Luc Mélenchon seems to be the pallbearer for the people for the citizens who are dissatisfied with the current political choices. But I think this is only a temporary position, because I believe that France Insoumise and Mélenchon's movement will face a pretty severe defeat in the legislative elections because of the systematic opposition that they have been taken to almost every single announcement that has been made, that is only reinforcing the polarization of our society. So I would really warn the Mélenchon electorate that they're playing a dangerous game that may actually leave them out of the mainstream, and to a large extent they're also favoring the rise of extremism and demagoguery in French political discourse.
All right, we'll see, of course, between now and mid-June, when we have those parliamentary elections, of course, how it all plays out. Martin Michele, many thanks for joining us from Prague. I want to thank Charles Begbede, Marie Toussaint, and Arnaud Vessier. Stay with us, though. Media Watch is next. And we say hello to James Creedon. James, I'm just thinking about it. We haven't had a joint photo op in public of the new president and the new prime minister yet.
Not yet, but it's already appeared on social media. This is a tweet by Emmanuel Macron showing Edouard Philippe and himself hard at work. One would imagine that perhaps the work had already taken place and this was a staged photo shoot. But let's not get in the way of the PR.
You're so cynical,
right? So that is a photo of the president and his prime minister, and the caption says, "With Edouard Philippe, prime minister of a government of unity, I guess, and renewal to change France." Now, not everybody on Twitter views this as a renewal. We'll get to that in a moment, but let's take a look at some of the elements on news websites and social media. Now, of course, some of the ministers drawn from Les Républicains, the political right, Bruno Le Maire and Gérald Darmanin. They are two faces that were, I suppose, part of this unity government. There were expectations, too, that the MEP Sylvie Goulard might be named as Prime Minister. She was named instead as Minister of the Armed Forces, a sort of an old-fashioned term that has been brought back instead of Minister of Defence. It's
a very, very Gaullian way of, again, these sort of like General de Gaulle kind of thing.
That's right, a little...
The Minister of Armed Forces.
That's right, a little wink to perhaps a more old-fashioned way of doing things, a Jupiterian presidency. Here you have a GIF that is often pulled out and used to express confusion, or it's a Quentin Tarantino clip, I believe. And you can see here the fact that, well, only one of the major ministries was given to a woman. Now, if you look at the actual breakdown of numbers, junior ministers and ministers, it was pretty equal, but some saying that perhaps the more important portfolios were given to men. I guess,
including Marie Toussaint here.
That's right, indeed. So some perhaps nitpicking, but there you go. You're going to get that on social media. And here you have one tweet saying, a promise that was not kept. This is in reference to a ministry for women's rights. That was something that was brought in under François Hollande, and that it appears it has not been maintained, even though there is a ministry or a junior ministry for equal pay between men and women, or something along those lines. Now, the centre was also the centre of François Bayrou. The Modem movement is also represented. François Bayrou himself getting the Justice Ministry, so a lot of people commenting on that. A man known for having a somewhat authoritarian streak at times. This image is often dug out, where François Bayrou famously slapped a pickpocket, this young boy was pickpocketing him in a scene going back many years, and François Bayrou taking an old-fashioned approach, taking the law into his own hands. But now, as he's Justice Minister, I suppose he perhaps can do that with a little bit more authority. Other comments on social media, somewhat cynical about the whole idea of